Welcome back, Wolfpack Verlis here, and this is going to be a Super Smash Bros. Mewtwo guide. Mewtwo just got released as DLC for Wii U and 3DS Super Smash Bros. And the first impressions are this is Melee Mewtwo thrown straight into Super Smash Bros. 4, so it's going to be fairly interesting. Now, this is also only a day or two after the DLC has just come out, so keep that in mind. In a couple months, this guide might be a little obsolete, but for now, we have a decent amount of combos. We have some things that Mewtwo is capable of, so let's just go and kind of look at how Mewtwo feels. Mewtwo, decent dash, actually. You just kind of kick up. Not the fastest character, but you do have some good mobility, it feels like, and you are incredibly floaty. I mean, look at this. It's pretty much like Melee Mewtwo with the Smash 4 engine, and that is a big problem for Mewtwo, because if you take a quick look at the aerials, you don't have too much to defend yourself in air, and you're just going to be an easy target to get grabbed out of the air or to get comboed. So keep that in mind when you're using Mewtwo, that you want to most likely try to find a way to get down safely and then work from there. But Mewtwo does have a lot of other things up its kit that work out pretty well. But first, let's just go and check out his moves. Let's do a quick reset. So let's talk about tilts. The down tilt, super fast. Like if you miss a down tilt, you have another chance of maybe landing it if you were a little too early on it. But it doesn't really necessarily combo into itself really quickly. That it can be DI'd out of, and it doesn't really lead up to too much, but it's still pretty nice to have. It comes out quick. And the rest of Mewtwo's tail moves are really good, that if you just kind of look at this, tail comes out pretty fast, and it just has good range. Same with the up tilt. Up tilt, it doesn't necessarily combo into itself too well, because the back of the tail, as you can see, it doesn't necessarily have a solid hitbox, and it does knock them behind. However, if it's closer to Mewtwo, you can still hit them again, or you can turn around really quickly like that. That's how you combo the up tilt tail, by turning around. Okay, now time for the smashes. The forward smash, it's your general charge up, throw out a blast of energy, and then do a good amount of damage with them. It has a decent speed. It's not the fastest, but it does also have a pretty good range as well. So it's a decent smash. Now your down smash is not as strong as some other down smashes, that it's only a forward facing down smash, and it doesn't have the greatest KO potential. That was at 110% right there, and it didn't quite send Mario flying, and again, it doesn't hit from behind. So it's really going to be good for if you feel that they're going to shield roll short and you can get a read. That's really nice, but mainly your bread and butter. Mario's at 108 right now, and that's going to be a KO on a no charge up smash. The up smash is stupidly powerful, and it also does last for quite some time. So if they end up walking into your up smash, they might just catch the end of it, which is where the smash is, and then they could get knocked out or at least take a good hit. Also, you can use it while dashing. So you come out of a dash, and you can actually add a little bit of extra range to your up smash, which means you can kind of close in on an opponent and catch them in it. That was actually a decent example of how, you know, the hitbox does last for quite some time, and you can still sweet spot them while dashing. As for Mewtwo's dash, it hits hard, and it goes in pretty good ways, that, you know, you can start it early, and the hitbox lasts for quite some time. So you can really just use it to run past an opponent that's trying to do some kind of grab. You can at least get the damage out there, and it's really safe. It's a really safe dash to be using, and you can kind of use it at a lot of positions. So now, time for Mewtwo's specials. Basic special is going to be Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball, though, unlike other games, you know, it doesn't do damage. That they can be inside of your Shadow Ball all day long. Let's see if we can position this right, and it does nothing. So you can't use it with a defensive setup that you're going to have to commit to charging it, but once you've charged it, it does a good amount of damage. That it does 25 damage and has solid knockback and good KO potential at around 110%, so you can make it turn into some good things. Now, if we look at some other things that this is capable of, you know, it's going to be general. You can shield out of it. You can also roll, and that's going to save your charge, so you can roll. And it does the same thing as a shield dodge, so you can kind of just keep doing that until it's fully charged and make it count. Now, one interesting thing is how far you are pushed back when throwing it. Please do not try to use this to harass your opponent from off the edge, because you will put yourself in a very dangerous position that might cause you to just have a self-destruct because of it. So some other things that you can do is when you shield out of it, you can use that to space, because say you're charging, you can shield, you can do a short hop, and then you can throw it. So after that, and it'll push you back. So you can kind of do that at a decent amount of charges, and you can use that to space. So it really helps. That's a nice little bit of tech that people have discovered about it. Once you're really good at it, you know, you can bring in a bit more speed and just kind of use it to harass at different ranges. As for the other ones, we have his confusion. His confusion is pretty cool. Reflects projectiles, and it also does have a chance of catching them. As for combos out of this, you know, you can go into a short hop aerial, and it does pretty well. And that's the spike. We'll talk about the spike. his down air is pretty solid, and the neutral air is really good. So, you know, you can kind of catch your opponent, or you can just use it to reflect projectiles. And then next, we also have your disable. Disable is going to confuse them. They get confused longer the more damage they have. So that was Mario at 10%, so he doesn't have a lot. Now let's go and bump him up to about 40. And once he gets up, as you can see, he's stunned significantly longer, and they do have a brief immunity as they come out of it. So try not to spam it too much for damage, but you can at least pile on some smashes to that. And now we also have the teleport. So your recovery is pretty solid as a recovery, but it doesn't really do any damage. That even at the beginning or at the end, it just has no damage at all. So it is going to go nicely with Mewtwo's just overall recovery. That Mewtwo has a really strong double jump that you can come from off screen straight up, and even, like, you know, from a bit of ways off, and you can come in. So it does mean that Mewtwo does have a decent off-ledge game, that as long as you keep your jump, you'll be okay. Think about it like Yoshi's double jump with an extra B up. So, I mean, you get some serious distance. However, if you do get hit after using your double jump and you haven't touched the ground, it will cancel your double jump, and now you're kind of left with a okay recovery. Like, it's not the best recovery on its own, but together with the rest of Mewtwo's kit, it's actually really strong. So I like that about Mewtwo. And yeah, you can use it to kind of overshoot the landings, which is really nice that if you have air, it does have some momentum carryover. So if you feel that you're pretty far away, let's see if we can get a good range, that'll put you back on the ledge, and you can probably get away with being a little further away getting onto the ledge, or just grabbing onto the ledge. So that's pretty good. Also, one other thing that you have is when you use your B over in air, when you use your confusion in air, it actually makes you jump a bit. Keep this in mind, it can be used for recovering, so say you're super far away, you know, you can get back and then you can teleport, so that helps. But also, you tend to jump over projectiles. If your opponent launches a projectile in the air, most likely you're not going to bounce it back, you're just going to jump over them, so keep that in mind. However, if you're already in a double jump, you can use it like that. Also, try not to use your disable in air because it will cancel the momentum of your jump. So you can maybe use that as like a kind of idea of what you can do with it. As you can see, it kind of does a really good short hop after canceling it into a double jump. But from there, you know, you do have to time it really well. Just try not to use it near the ledge too much, or else you might be in trouble. Like, it doesn't really work out too well like that. So now we can talk about aerials. I've been showing off the aerials quite a bit. So Mewtwo's aerials are fairly interesting. They're all fairly good, but the problem is that you need to be using them offensively. You cannot use these aerials defensively at all. That they have to be a part of a combo, or else you're going to have a bad time, pretty much. So the neutral air does a serious amount of damage that you can short hop it. Well, if we can actually do it, you can short hop into it, and you can catch your opponent and do a really nice amount of damage, somewhere around 15%, just for catching them in that. Or you can use the end of it. So it's really good for breaking combos. That if they're trying to combo you in air, you just kind of mash your neutral and they can get caught in it, and it just combos out really nicely. So if we just kind of look at some other things, the back air, it has a very awkward hitbox that, you know, it doesn't last a long time. So say it's already out, that you have to hit them with the actual attack, which is a very short window at a very weird range, but then it also has some good gimping potential. So when you look at it like that, it actually hits pretty hard, and the closer you are to the tail, the more damage it does. So you can kind of use it to keep people off the edge really well, and to space, but you have to line it up properly. It will take some practice, but if you get it, you will be pretty solid. As for Mewtwo's forward air, it's again a pretty specific hitbox, but you can kind of make it do some really cool things. So it does just jump into itself, and you can get 2 hits. This happens at most mid percentages, and it also does have some KO potential. So if they're off the ledge and they're at higher percentages and you land that, you do have a good chance of securing a KO, but again, the hitbox is pretty specific. They have to be above you just a bit in most cases, and then you just kind of have to lead them into it to be able to hit it at its most optimal. Now the next, his down air. His down air is really good. It has spike, it KOs at a lot of ranges, and it just kind of leads your opponent to bounce and get juggled pretty well. So that's going to be like the start of a juggle in some cases, and then you can just kind of combo it into the rest of your kit. Now Mario was at a super high amount of damage already from there, but just kind of shows. Also, it's really good to short hop into. That if you can kind of catch your opponent with that, you know, you can short hop juggle them just a bit. It doesn't really necessarily combo into too much, but it's just a really good option. Also, because Mewtwo's jump is so good, you know, you can kind of catch them like that if they're coming back on the ledge, you just land a quick little spike, or you can guard with it pretty well. And also, Mewtwo does have the ability to wall hop, so his recovery does pair very nicely with it. And next, we have his up air. Now, his up air is pretty much like Mario's up air. It doesn't do a ridiculous thing that unless you like sweet spot it super close to the base of the tail, it's just going to kind of be a nice little bit of damage, so it'll bounce them up a bit, and at lower percentages you might be able to catch them once or twice with it pretty well. So that's going to be the main of Mewtwo's abilities. Alright, so now let's talk about your throws. At 0%, your down throw into a Shadow Ball is going to be very reliable. That's about the most that you're going to be able to get out of that when it comes to the throws. That the combos are fairly hard to find, and it's mostly going to be about trying to find just follow-ups. That, you know, this is your up throw. It looks pretty good on paper, but I'm going to be mashing jump right now after throwing it. By the time you jump, by the time you can respond out of your grab, your opponent's already really close to the ground. Even at higher percentages, you know, you're going to have to really get a good read on them before you can make anything of it. There's nothing really guaranteed to it. But that's the cool thing about Mewtwo's throws, is that they reward being able to properly figure out what your opponent is up to. That if you get a good feel for your opponent, then you can, like, you know, turn that into a neutral air really quick, and you can just kind of look for good aerial options. So with the forward throw, you can actually turn that into some really good things. That it can lead to a dash if they try to come straight down, or you can also try to look for an up smash with it, that if you do catch them as they're coming down the right spot, you might be able to make them fall into your up smash, which is very strong. Now Mewtwo, his main thing is going to be the back throw. That if you get a back throw on them, it's really just going to be frustrating. That at higher percentages, you know, people can just jump. That's when you start setting up for the tail. That's when you try to just catch your opponent off guard with that. As for grabbing with Mewtwo, it's kind of interesting, you know, he doesn't have a great grab range. That I think that's about as close as we can get without grabbing them. But at the same time, he has a really quick grab that you can use it pretty well for shield grabs or dash grabs. That you can start off combos, and that's really where you're going to get a lot of your damage. It's not necessarily comboing the grabs, but just getting some quick grabs in, pummeling them, throwing them away, and finding your options from there. Also with grabs, you can do a quick shield grab out of your Shadow Ball. So as you saw right there, that can be quick if they're just trying to do a dash or something. You can get a little bit of charge. You can also catch them if they're not outright attacking you, and it works out pretty well. As for Mewtwo's playstyle, you just kind of want to be very, very defensive. That if you know your opponent is above you in the air, you're in a good position. But if your opponent is below you in the air, you need to find out how to get back down onto the air or onto the ground as soon as possible, because Mewtwo is very susceptible of getting juggled, since he is a floaty character, very punishable, which is why you just kind of want to make sure you keep your punishing low by playing very defensive and then trying to punish your opponent with as many quick grabs or some like short hop and airs and things like that. That Mewtwo puts on damage really quick. That even though without combos, it's still pretty nice that you can do a couple of hits back to back, and next thing you know, your opponent's at 50-60% really well, and that's where some of the combos come in. So let's go and look at those right now. So let's look at some quick Mewtwo combos. Your down tilt into a neutral air is going to be very reliable at early levels and be about a free 20%, and then if you know, you can follow that up with something else because your opponent comes out of it and it's going to be in your favor. Now, of course, that this is a computer, so it's not giving true reactions, but at least with that, you know, the early down tilt is going to somewhat be a true combo into your neutral air under a lot of circumstances. Also, what people are doing is you can charge up your Shadow Ball, just get a jab, and then throw it. Depending on how they respond, then if they don't mash out of it or jump out of it, they are in a decent position of getting hit by that, which can translate into a good amount of damage. Now, we've already talked about some Mewtwo tech where, you know, you just do the shield and then you try to space with that. But what people are doing is they're short hopping into an air dodge. Now, the reason why this is so effective is because Mewtwo's air dodge is like no one else's. It's hard to keep track. It's a fairly disorienting air dodge. So when people are doing this, they'll come out of it into a neutral air, and it's really hard to keep track of. That, look, Mewtwo has very little vulnerability. You don't know where he's going to appear, and then he comes out of it almost immediately in a neutral air. So you can short hop neutral airs into that, or you can just kind of shield dodge and then try to feel how they react and then get some kind of punish with it. That you can know you can do this while all of his things. That you can come out into a down spike, and that's going to be fairly strong. So that's just one of the more tricky things that people are doing with Mewtwo, but it is still very effective. Okay, so let's look at Mewtwo's strongest combo. What you want to do is you want to use Confusion into a Shadow Ball, into a Disable as they get up, and that's going to be a free 12 damage, plus whatever you want to do after it. That, depending on how low or high they are in percentages, you can charge a Smash and just finish someone with a KO very easily like that. So why this works is because once you use that Shadow Ball, it forces a hard knockdown, which means they can't roll out of it. They can't attack. They have to do a standard get up. If you time it right, that's a free disable because they're facing you from the confusion, and then you just get a charge smash. So yeah, with Mewtwo, it's going to be more, instead of true combos, it's going to be being very calculating over your opponent and just trying to play up these really weird mix-up games that, you know, oh, I can just kind of space out, throw out some balls, try to catch them. You know, if they're spamming projectiles, you can do pretty well with that. Other than that, you know, landing a disable can be very devastating at around 80%. They know free disable into a decent charge on a smash, that was at 60%, so if they were a little higher, could have gotten a little more charge, and that would have been a very good chance of them getting knocked out. And other than that, Mewtwo's just pretty crazy on that regard. So let's go into some battles and feel out how the character works. As for playing against human characters, you just have to understand that pretty much almost everything in your kit is usable at a certain time, that every situation is different, and if you respond to it with the right move, it can be a very rewarding experience. And also, you just need to never underestimate the power of your B. That since you are a neutral B charged character, always be having it charged when you find the opportunity, even if it means dancing around the map for a while. It also might drop your opponent's guard, so you just need to turn into those opportunities where you need to punish. That if you see that they're about to shield roll out of one direction, just throw out the charge move and see if it works. On top of that, you can just kind of look for your neutral airs. Your neutral airs are going to be very strong, especially with that jump into the air dodge combo that people don't expect it. And as long as you don't spam it too much, they might not catch on, and that's just going to be a basic tool for damage. While in the air, just remember, if your opponent is below you, get down safely. If you are below your opponent, however, now you can try to look for those moments where you can use your tail to kick them back a bit, or just try to scout out for the little bits of damage, and you'll find some really nifty combos along the way. While I can't really say that there's anything guaranteed, you just kind of have to look and respond as needed, and you will be able to do some really cool things. Also, since your confusion is a projectile reflection, just try to anticipate when your opponent is going to see you as vulnerable, because that is when they are most likely to throw out a projectile, or when they themselves are vulnerable. If they're tumbling, they might try to throw out their projectile and then to catch you off guard, but really you can kind of redemption onto them as well. And those are kind of just the basics that Mewtwo, once you understand everything, it's just going to take a little bit of time to understand how he plays. But if you just kind of make sure that you're not being too floaty and vulnerable and you're really just punishing your opponents by getting as many grabs in as possible, get as many off-ledge hits as possible, the damage will add up, and then you can finish them with a smash or some kind of back throw. That actually has some good KO potential. As for some other really nifty things I've learned, spikes. You know, Mewtwo has a spike. Abuse it whenever you can. If they're trying to get near that ledge, you can stop them pretty efficiently. And apparently your neutral air can gimp, and because you have a relatively safe way of getting back onto the ledge, you do have the opportunity of using that. And I'd also like to add that disable is fairly useful, that if you know that you're going to make eye contact with your opponent, if you can feel it coming, throw out the disable, and if they are around 80% or even a little less, that's pretty much the freest KO you could possibly imagine. I hope this guide really helps with playing Mewtwo. Remember, this is more of a basic guide, that this isn't going to be super in-depth combos and how to master the character, but it is a lot of the basics that you can pick up and a lot of the gameplay styles that you need to adapt when playing Mewtwo. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did enjoy it, please leave a like and share it with your friends, and I hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.